That blinding, volcanic rage you felt when your commuter train was delayed this morning?
Oh, yeah.
Or, maybe when you spilled your coffee on your way out the door. According to the psychological research we are unpacking today, you weren't actually mad at the train,
No, not at all.
and you weren't mad at the coffee either. Your anger actually started, like, hours before you even left your house.
Which is a completely counterintuitive way to view our own emotions, right?
Yeah, completely.
I mean, we're so conditioned to believe that our frustration is a direct, immediate response to the present moment, to whatever just, went wrong right in front of us.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring some fascinating source material that completely dismantles how we understand everyday frustration.
It really is.
The mission here for you listening is to understand the hidden mechanics of your own anger. We want to look at why tiny disruptions cause such massive psychological friction and figure out how to rewire the way you navigate a highly unpredictable world.
And to do that, the foundational concept in this research requires a total paradigm shift regarding how we view the human brain.
Okay, lay it on us.
We basically have to stop thinking of the brain as a machine that simply reacts to the world. And we have to start understanding it as a highly aggressive prediction engine.
A prediction engine.
Yes. So the anger you feel when a schedule goes off script is not a reaction to the event itself. It's actually a biological shadow created by a mind that has frantically anticipated a future that, well, failed to arrive.
Okay, the brain as a prediction engine. Let's break that down a bit because, if I drop my coffee cup, I feel the anger instantaneously.
Right.
It feels like a direct reflex to watching the ceramic shatter all over the floor.
Sure, it feels that way. But the reflex is just the final domino falling. Under the hood, your brain is constantly burning calories to construct this subconscious blueprint.
Like a schedule.
Exactly. A blueprint of how the next 10 minutes, 10 hours, and even 10 days are going to play out. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it does this to conserve energy.
Oh, to conserve energy.
Yeah. If the brain can successfully guess what happens next, it doesn't have to spend precious metabolic resources processing entirely new information.
Right. So you expect the hot water to turn on, you expect the coffee grinder to hum, you expect the train doors to open.
Precisely.
You are essentially living steps ahead of the present.
Constantly, you are walking around with an invisible, rigid framework in your head dictating exactly how reality should behave.
And then when it doesn't.
Well, as long as the physical world aligns with your internal blueprint, your brain operates efficiently and you feel calm. But the second reality deviates from that blueprint. Your brain registers what researchers call a prediction error.
And I'm guessing it doesn't just calmly accept that it made a mistake.
Not at all. It panics.
It panics. Wow.
Yeah, it registers the broken prediction as a literal threat. Your system spikes with cortisol and adrenaline.
So it's a physiological response.
Completely. What we experience emotionally as frustration is simply the severe friction between an unyielding, messy reality and our desperate, biologically driven desire to shove the world back into the shape of our internal blueprint.
That dynamic is so perfectly illustrated every time I am at an airport.
Oh, the airport is prime territory for this.
Right. You watch boarding passengers, and there is always someone trying to shove a wildly oversized, bizarrely shaped piece of luggage into a highly rigid overhead bin.
Sweating,
Yeah.
pushing, holding up the entire line.
Yes. Getting visibly furious at the bag. They're cursing the zipper, cursing the airline, cursing the universe.
Right.
But the bag isn't actually the problem. The problem is the fixed, rigid dimensions of the overhead bin. They are trying to force a messy, misshapen reality into a metal box that fundamentally cannot accommodate it.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And the psychological research takes that airplane scenario a step further by isolating the true source of the pain.
Which is
Well, the frustration that passengers feeling isn't caused by the reality of the bag. The frustration is generated entirely by the gap between reality and their mental ideal of how smoothly boarding should go.
the gap.
Yeah, reality is organic, highly unpredictable, and honestly, largely indifferent to our plans. Treating our internal blueprint as the absolute only acceptable outcome is like trying to cage a wild animal.
Okay, so if having that rigid overhead bin in my mind is what causes the friction, the obvious solution seems to be, removing the bin entirely.
Right, just get rid of it.
Yeah, Why not just stop caring? Like, if attachment to a specific outcome causes a cortisol spike every time a train is late, shouldn't I just embrace total chaos and become completely apathetic? Just burn the blueprint.
Apathy is incredibly tempting, I'll give you that.
Phew.
But the authors of this research outline exactly why forced nihilism is a psychological trap.
A trap.
Yes, throwing your hands up and claiming you don't care about anything is not actually releasing your attachment. It is, well, it's just another much more exhausting form of control.
Because you have to actively work to suppress your natural reactions.
Exactly. You are forcing a state of suppression.
Ah.
Think of the mind like a pendulum. Swinging to the extreme of demanding total control over your day causes friction.
Sure.
But swinging to the opposite extreme, forcing a state of utter carelessness, strips the mind of any stable resting place.
Huh. So you're burning just as many calories trying to convince yourself you don't care about the spilled coffee.
Often more. And when the brain is exhausted from the effort of suppressing its natural predictive drive, it leads to a state of chronic, restless irritation.
Oh, wow.
The data actually shows that people who attempt to force apathetic mindsets end up overreacting to the smallest microstressors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their baseline for emotional regulation plummets because they've essentially removed their own shock absorbers.
Wait, hold on. If I shouldn't be completely apathetic, but having a rigid ideal makes me miserable, how do I ever achieve anything ambitious?
That's the big question.
Right, because if I am building a company or even just trying to plan a massive family vacation, I have to demand a specific outcome. I need a blueprint, or literally nothing gets done.
Well, ambition and goal setting are not the enemies here. The research draws a very sharp line between having a healthy ideal and harboring a toxic mental framework.
Okay, what's the difference?
The toxicity doesn't lie in the goal itself. It lies in the exclusivity of the goal.
Meaning, like, I treat the goal as the absolute only acceptable reality.
Exactly. When your brain encodes a goal with the parameter of, it must happen exactly this way on this specific timeline, or it's a catastrophic failure.
And you're in trouble.
Yeah. You have turned a healthy ambition into a rigid overhead bin.
Yeah.
You have widened the gap between reality and expectation, virtually guaranteeing your own frustration when the inevitable variables of life intervene.
Okay, so the mechanism makes sense. Anger isn't an explosion, it's a prediction error. And we can't just forcefully shut off our desires. But if my brain is literally wired to be a prediction engine to conserve energy, how do I actively short-circuit that anticipation? I mean, I can't just tell my brain to stop predicting the future.
No, you can't just tell it to stop, but you can redirect its processing power. And this brings in a crucial piece of neuroscience regarding what is called the default mode network, or the DMN.
The DMN, that's the part of the brain that lights up when we are daydreaming or catastrophizing, right?
Yes, it's essentially the brain's time travel mechanism. When you aren't actively focused on a demanding task, the DMN activates, and it immediately starts simulating the future or ruminating on the past.
So that's where the anxiety lives.
Exactly. This is the engine of anticipatory anger. So the psychological solution provided in the research is to starve the DMN of bandwidth by grounding your sensory input.
Grounding sensory input. Give me an example of what that looks like in practice on, say, a Randall Tuesday.
It involves forcing the brain to process immediate, highly specific physical data. Well, when you are eating, you focus entirely on the complex texture and taste of the food. Or when you are walking from your car to your office, you shift your entire attention to the physical sensation of your feet hitting the pavement.
Just focusing on the physical senses.
Yeah, you are flooding your brain's processing centers with real-time sensory data.
Okay, but feeling my feet on the pavement might calm me down in the morning, but how does that stop a meltdown when my entire project gets derailed at 3 p.m.?
It seems like a stretch, right?
Yeah. It feels like we are trying to treat a systemic software issue with a very small, superficial Band-Aid.
It seems disconnected until you look at how neural pathways adapt. By repeatedly pulling your attention away from the predictive default mode network and flooding it with present sensory data, you are actively building what the researchers term mental margin.
Mental margin, so like creating a buffer.
Yes, a buffer. A brain that has been sprinting to the future all day via the DMN is exhausted. It is brittle.
Makes sense.
It's like a guitar string pulled so tight that the slightest pluck causes a jarring noise, or even snaps the string entirely. The project derailing at 3 p.m. causes a meltdown because the brain has zero metabolic margin left to process the error.
Oh, I see. But a brain that has been resting in the present has the bandwidth to handle the shock.
Exactly. It has the cognitive flexibility to look at the derailed project and say, This is not the blueprint, but I have the energy to pivot.
Wow.
Feeling your feet on the pavement isn't just about enjoying a walk. It is a neurological rep. You are lifting weights to build the mental shock absorbers you will need when the severe disruptions hit.
That fundamentally reframes mindfulness for me. It's not just relaxation, it's resource allocation.
That's a great way to put it.
But taking that concept a step further, feeling my feet might solve the immediate cortisol spike today, but it doesn't solve my 5-year plan.
Right.
If I am supposed to stop predicting the future and just stare at my sensory inputs, how do I make long-term decisions without just wandering aimlessly through life?
Well, the researchers address this by asking subjects to perform a chronological thought experiment.
Okay.
Look back 10 years into your own past. Consider the person you were a decade ago. Could that past version of you have accurately predicted the exact, highly specific circumstances of your life today?
Oh, not a chance. The job I have, the city I live in, the people I know, none of it was in my blueprint 10 years ago.
That is the universal response. Human beings are notoriously terrible at macro prediction.
We really are.
The research illustrates that our lives are not built by sweeping grandmaster plans, but by thousands of micro decisions, tiny, seemingly inconsequential actions that dynamically alter our trajectory.
It reminds me of a connect the dots puzzle.
Oh, sure.
But like a giant connect the dots puzzle where you don't actually have the final picture on the box. You only figure out what the image is by simply drawing the line to the very next dot in front of you.
I love that. Or think about navigating a dark, winding road in heavy fog. You can only see 5 feet in front of your car because of the headlights. You don't have a clear 10-mile view of the destination.
But you can make a 1,000-mile journey just by driving the 5 feet you can actually see.
That is the core insight right there. Straining your eyes trying to peer through the fog to see the 10-mile mark is what causes the tension, the anxiety, and the psychological fatigue.
Because it's impossible.
Right. Releasing the need to see the entire route brings an immense lightness. You just have to navigate the 5 feet illuminated by your headlights. The future will naturally render itself based on how you handle the immediate present.
And if we look back at the fog we've already driven through, the detours that felt like massive failures at the time, like the job offer that fell through, or the relationship that ended, the project that collapsed, those were just necessary reroutes to get us to the exact coordinates we are standing on now.
Yes, recognizing the necessity of past disruptions is what neutralizes the panic of present disruptions.
Yes, the powerful.
When the train is delayed today, a brain with mental margin doesn't view it as a catastrophe. It views it as just another turn in the fog. It is just the next dot in the puzzle.
So if we manage to shut down the aggressive prediction engine, build this mental margin, and just drive the 5 feet in front of us, how do we actually interact with other people and with a chaotic world?
What do you mean?
Like, what does that day-to-day mindset actually look like if we aren't enforcing a blueprint?
It looks like an active, dynamic acceptance of reality. The research refers to this as accepting the natural flow or reason of things. Ignoring this natural flow and trying to bend the external world to your internal blueprint is the root of all that friction.
It makes me think of floating down a river.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, you can paddle gently to avoid rocks, right? You're doing what's in your control. But if you turn around and try to swim upstream against a roaring current, which is what you can't control, you will just exhaust and drown yourself.
That's exactly it. And the text makes a crucial distinction here. Accepting the flow is not the same as giving up.
Right, because floating isn't drowning.
Exactly. People assume that letting go of the blueprint means you just let life trample you. But acceptance is a calm, deliberate attitude of doing exactly what is within your power, carefully and politely, while letting go of the rest.
You are still participating. You are still navigating the river.
Yes. You are working with the river you have rather than the one you wish you had. By releasing your death grip on the blueprint, you don't lose your ambition or your edge. You gain a quiet calmness and the cognitive flexibility to accept whatever outcome arrives and turn it to your advantage.
And because you aren't burning all your metabolic energy furiously trying to predict the next 10 miles of the river, you can actually notice the subtle details of the current you are currently in.
You reclaim your attention. The quiet, everyday moments of happiness that you were previously too stressed and fixated on your blueprint to even see finally become visible.
Man. To synthesize all of this for you listening, the deep frustration we feel when our day goes off script is really just the metabolic friction between our rigid internal blueprints and a beautifully messy, organic reality. It's the oversized luggage being shoved into the unyielding overhead bin.
Yes, and the mechanism to escape that friction is to starve the brain's predictive engine.
Right. By grounding ourselves in sensory input, like truly tasting our food, feeling our footsteps, we pull power away from that time-traveling part of the brain. We build the mental margin required to just navigate by our headlights. We stop fighting the river, and we learn to flow with life.
As we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
The next time your schedule shatters, the flight is canceled, the coffee spills, the meeting falls apart, and you feel that familiar adrenaline-fueled rush of anticipatory anger bracing your body.
Pause. Let's just take a breath.
Take a breath and ask yourself, is it mathematically possible that this specific disruption, the exact one making your blood boil right now, is actually just an essential dot that you will look back on in 10 years with profound gratitude?
A turn in the fog you couldn't possibly understand until the rest of the road is rendered. What a great place to stop. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep your mental frameworks loose, build your mental margin, and stay curious.